I love comparing, and I love to using all these fingers and try the best. And I'll kind of pick up this fingering from this person, pick up the finger from this person, and then create some of my own fingers and become my own style. I think that's just what we do if you really like Bach.
Henry Chen and I have known each other for 10 years at this point, and he's somebody that I've been meaning to get on the podcast for some time. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and I first met Henry when he came to Chicago to study at DePaul University, and he immediately won the concerto competition with the Bottesini Concerto, and he actually won the concerto competition, I think, twice that year. I don't even know how that's possible, but he won with the Bottesini duo, the violin and bass piece. So he performed both of those pieces with the DePaul Orchestra that year. The year after that, he got principal bass in the Civic Orchestra of Chicago, and it's been so much fun to follow along with his career as he then went to Champaign-Urbana, got his doctorate there, and is now teaching in China. So what's it like teaching bass in China? What's it like coming to the United States, speaking no English and diving in, having basically played no orchestral repertoire, to all of a sudden be studying with Rob Kassinger of the Chicago Symphony, who, if there's one thing Rob knows, it's orchestral bass performance. What were those experiences like? What did he learn in the process? And what's it like just in China in general as a bass player? I'm totally fascinated by that. And Henry has some wonderful observations and thoughts and advice and recommendations. So this is a great one, folks. You're really going to enjoy hearing from Henry. We've got some great sponsors on board. I'd like to thank D'Addario Strings and Upton Bass String Instrument Company. Great folks. You'll hear more from them later. And you're going to be hearing some of Henry's bass playing. We're going to feature some clips of him playing the Franck Sonata, the violin sonata, first movement and last movement. And you can find links to Henry's website and everything he's up to in the show notes. So let's dig into this conversation with my good friend, Henry Chen. So what time of day is it for you right now?
Now is 10 o'clock in the morning. What about you?
10 o'clock in the morning on Monday, right?
On Monday, yes. For
okay.
you, it should be Sunday.
Yeah, 6 p.m. on Sunday, because I'm out here in San Francisco.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. After many years in Chicago, but yeah, here on the West Coast now.
I know, right? We were together in DePaul University for 2 years.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I still remember the time. And it was my pleasure to be in the same orchestra with you for a year.
That's right. That's right. When was that the year at DePaul? That was like late 2000s, right?
2007.
Okay.
2007, 2008. Yeah.
And now, where are you right now? Are you in Taiwan right now, or are you in mainland China?
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
Right now, I mean, my job is in mainland China in Soochow University. But during the break, in summer break and winter break, I always come back to Taiwan to relax. And every summer, we have a very, very good bass festival in Taiwan, in Yilan area. And every year, we invite different professors, including Catherine Rotaru, Thierry Babet, Thomas Martin, and Pino Etoile. Every year. When this year is coming year, we have Arpado Pacini and Ardan Cherkov. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
so that's
wonderful.
What we have this year. Yeah. Bass is a more and more popular instrument in Asia, and especially in China. They kind of, when I was younger, 20 years ago, there are not so many bass player or musician in China that we can see outside of China. But right now, there are more and more players probably because the economic issue is much better now than 20 years ago. And they are serious about learning music. And you probably can also see more and more Chinese study abroad in Europe, in US, and especially you can see in our RSB competition, so many Asians, right? And they win first prize, and it's obviously is a big thing now in in China. So I think that's why we're having conversation now, right?
Well, it's exciting, and I was at the Bottesini competition in September, and the number of people from China or just Asian performers in general, I mean, it was a really high percentage of people in those final rounds. And so, it'd be fascinating. I mean, there's so many things we can talk about, and I want to talk about, I've got a list, a very long list of things that I think would be fun to dig into, but maybe just 20 years ago, studying. Now, you grew up in Taiwan.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was that like then versus now in terms of number of players, and then maybe we could talk about Taiwan and then mainland China as well.
Of course, it's easier for me to talk about Taiwan because I grew up here.
Yeah.
I would say, in general, Taiwan is about 20 years earlier than China in terms of starting to develop the Western music. Mm-hmm. The part of reason is because of the Cultural Revolution in China. So that postponed everything for them. So right now, when I teach in China, it feels like 20 years ago in Taiwan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
a lot of people start to send their kids to learn music. We always start with piano in Taiwan. So every parents, the government has a very good policy. They have commercial and everything to tell everybody, if your kid learn music, your kid will be much better than others. It's just like one sentence, learn music is the best thing for your kid's life. So that makes everybody very, excited to send their kids to the music studio. So I started to learn music when I was 5. Just learn basic theory and piano, and I got into a elementary school. They have music program. We have this kind of program start from the 3rd grade, and my mom actually picked up instrument for me, not myself. So when I get into the school, and the teacher said, your son has a very big hand, so maybe bass is the best instrument for him. By the end of time, I find out my hand is actually smaller than others. They just want to find a person, they just want to find a person to learn the bass. So they just try to persuade my mom. So anyway, that's the first time. And I got more serious when I was 6th grade, and I changed it to my major, and the piano become my minor. And I'm left-handed, so I think that's why my left hand moved faster than other people when I was younger. So I become familiar with bass more and more since I grew up. So I was when I was 15 years old, I get into a Taiwan University of the Art. That is a 7-year program. Start from your high school. Well, for you probably is 10th grade.
Okay.
And in Taiwan is a new system. So from age of 15 to 22, I was in the other school for 7 years and seriously learning bass. And we have 90 minutes lesson every week. So my teacher split it to 2 lessons. 1 lesson for 1 hour, 1 lesson for 30 minutes. So she can focus on different things. One for the technical and some skills, and the other one is for repertoire. So I think that's very important for my study. And the other thing I want to mention is when I was younger in Taiwan, we don't see bass as an orchestra instrument. We see it as a soloist instrument. So I don't know if you remember when you met me in DePaul, I have no idea how to play excerpts. And that's what Rob said about me. He said, Henry, you're one of the dream students that I really like, because whenever I say something, you can do it right away. But you have no experience of orchestra, and you have no clue how to play excerpt. And I told him, that's why I came here to DePaul and study with you, right? But I make into Civic Orchestra. That was a big change of my life, I think. And that's the main reason I came to Chicago. It's because Civic Orchestra of Chicago, yeah. And I had a great 2 years over there and study with Rob and also with a lot of good composers and conductors. I mean, in Chicago, there are so many things. It's a place you can see every kind of music: jazz, new music, contemporary, and classical. Great place for sure.
Yeah, it's an exciting town. And I remember you, this was after I left. We're going back in time 10 years or so, but you won the concerto competition at DePaul with Bottesini Concerto, if I remember right. Yeah. And Cliff Colnett, the conductor at DePaul, and it's sort of interesting figure for sure, reorchestrated the Bottesini Concerto for you.
Right.
And I have those parts somewhere on my computer and I've used them in the past. The Henry Chen inspired Bottesini reorchestration. Do you remember what Cliff did in terms of the reorchestration? And by the way, anyone listening, Cliff freely distributes these, so I have a copy if anyone's interested. He'd be happy to have people use it.
Yeah. Actually, I won twice actually that year, both Bottesini. Mm-hmm. You remember we have two orchestras in DePaul, right?
Yeah.
And actually, I played two pieces in the competition, and both of them won. So the other one is the grand duo with violin. Yeah. So anyway, so let's talk about the concerto. Yeah. I remember Cliff told me he looked at a lot of different editions and scores, and he found out there's no one he is satisfied, because sometimes he said this one is too thin, and that one has a lot of round notes. And so after searching for a lot of days, so he just decided I will just make my own editions. So I would say he tried to make the entire orchestra involved in this concerto. So including the low brass, all the winds. And for me, actually, it's difficult because I have to compete with the entire orchestra. But that's what he wants. So I remember in the rehearsals, I always say, I feel like I cannot hear myself. Because you need to remember we have 16 first violin, maybe 14 second violin. So it's 16, 14, 10, 10, 8. So 8 basses. And with all the brass and winds. And it was great. I mean, his arrangement is really, really good. There's some round notes, of course, in his edition. So we have to kind of talk about editing again. Mm-hmm. But also there are also, like the first few bars, there's few chord. I kind of like the piano version that we used to hear, but he changed the chord because he feel like the function is better in the other way. Mm-hmm. So I just let him go. So he make recordings of the orchestra only. I'm sure the copy of yours should be the one, right?
Yeah, that's what I have. Yeah, exactly. It's like a music minus one. Yeah, it's like the full orchestra, but not the bass part, correct? So that someone can play along.
Right.
Yeah.
But all the tempos, I think those are my tempo. So I tell him my tempo, he just record with that tempo. So if that's not good for other people, I feel I apologize here if that's too fast or too slow. But it was a great experience. I would say really thanks for his help to all the bass player, because in his mind, there's no edition better than his. So as one of his students, and also when I talking to you, I also want to tell everybody, please look at his edition and you will in love with it as long as the player plays softer.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So you what attracted you to Chicago was the Civic Orchestra, you said, and playing in the Civic Orchestra.
Because one of my classmates when I was younger, she studied in DePaul, and she introduced me to this school, teacher, and Civic Orchestra. I was auditioning different schools when I was in U.S. in a year, so I got into 3 schools with all the scholarship. And Civic Orchestra is the one I decide, really I wanted to go to Chicago because I'm in love with this training orchestra.
Yeah. What did you like? And I mean, we've both been in the Civic Orchestra. I had a great time playing there myself a few years before you. What were some of your favorite experiences? What did you like about that experience of playing in Civic?
I think the experience, the first of all is we got chance to know the CSO bass player, because we got coaching with sometimes with the principal, sometimes not. But anyway, we got chance to know basically everyone. So that's the first experience. And we, after we know, then we can kind of know how we can get into different kind of style of playing. Because even in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, each player has different fingerings, phrasing, bowing, and I just love compare with all the different kind of bowing and fingering and find my own things that I like. That's the first thing I like in the Civic. The second thing is we got chance to see great conductor, right? Like whenever they have good conductor to come to CSO, they will invite them to maybe do a reading section with us or a concert with us. I still remember I had Hartink and Boulez, those good conductor. They're just kind of legend. Yeah. And the experience, when I look at them, I remember in one rehearsal, Hartink do something, and we were not together. And he stopped. He just looked at us, say, don't think too much. Just look at me. And then we're together. I think that was Schubert Symphony No. 8. Yeah. It's just, his hand is just like magic. Mm-hmm. If you really look at him, because we have 8 rehearsals with Cliff Kona. We kind of get into a tempo of a kind of music style. And so when he comes to us, we already have our own style with conductor Cliff Kona. And so when he comes, he has to change something. And he find out we are not looking at him sometimes, because we already know the tempo and we just play the tempo. And he doesn't want us to be a robot. So he want us to be more free, and then look at him. And actually, I can feel the atmosphere is changing. So that is the magic, the most important experience for me. And that's why I'm always looking at conductor now while I'm playing the orchestra, because I feel like a different kind of body will give you a different soul, and you can bring different kind of music idea in front of everyone. Yeah, I think that's the experience I want to share.
It's that magic of a really high quality conductor that it's almost hard to describe, and it's something that, like, I even think as a teacher, like, I learn a lot by just the way that they approach something, or maybe a certain metaphor that they use, or a certain like glance or gesture. I mean, it's so fascinating because it really is the only musical art I can think of where they're actually producing no sound, right? They're inspiring sound from others, yes. But it's an incredibly fascinating and kind of weird role if you think about it a lot. But finding someone like Hartink or any of those other Chicago Symphony conductors that would come through, I mean, what a cool experience.
Right.
Folks have been raving about D'Addario's Kaplan strings. I've been using them for the last year or so, and I really love them. And here's some feedback from people that recently won Kaplan strings in our D'Addario giveaway.
Hi, Jason. This is Kim Perillo calling. So over the summer, I was one of the lucky winners of a new set of Kaplan strings. And now that I've had the strings on for several months, I wanted to share some thoughts. I opted for the heavy tension set, and I feel like the phrase heavy tension might sound a little scary, but they are easy to play on while still giving you that like punchy sound when you need it. Overall, the trend for bass strings seems to be going brighter and brighter, and in that context, these strings are a little on the darker side, but they are not dull in the slightest. Still a great, crisp, clear sound. Thanks, Jason, and thank you, D'Addario.
Learn more at contrabassconversations.com/strings, and thanks to D'Addario for sponsoring the podcast. So you had this great experience, and you're working with Cliff Colnut and getting this good training and Rob Kassinger, and then the next step for you was University of Illinois, correct?
Yes,
with
that's
Michael
correct.
Cameron, DMA program. Why
Yes.
was that? Why was that the next step for you? Why did you decide to go that direction?
I talked to Rob about where I should go for my DMA, and he said you already learned a lot from me in these 2 years. You focus on only orchestra in these 2 years, and I agree with him. So I should continue with some other solo playing, especially for me, new music is one thing that I really want to learn more at the US. So Illinois, because the professor there, Michael Cameron, he is a person who always commission people to write for him, and he make a lot of world premiere in different places. So I auditioned not only for there, I auditioned for Arizona State University at that time, and also Michigan State University. Jack Boozer was there when I auditioned there. So I auditioned 3 places, and I got all of them, and I also got good scholarship and tuition waiver. So I really have to make a decision. And I think first of all is I don't want to be too far away from Chicago because I like the city. That's the first thing. And the second thing is I like Michael's his approach of new music and the way he teach is I think that fits my philosophy. That's the main reason. So I think it's the teacher. The teacher is the one who really inspired me to go there.
No, and you even filled in for Michael for a period of time, didn't you? When he was he on sabbatical? Okay.
Yeah. That was 2014. 2013 fall semester.
Okay.
Yeah. He was a great teacher. He actually took sabbatical for me. He wanted me to get more experience of teaching. So, and he said, I have so many projects in my mind. I can take sabbatical anytime. I just don't find any person I trust, to be here while I was in sabbatical. So it was a great time. And before that year, I was teaching in Ball State University in Indiana. Yeah, so it was 2012. Yeah, and we went to Chicago and to teach in the festival. Was the festival?
Was it the Chicago Bass Festival?
Yes. Yeah. We were there together.
Yeah, our paths have crossed a lot over the years.
Right. That's right.
Well, how cool to go and fill in. I always think it's really interesting when people get a chance to do some teaching at a place that they went to school. I had that experience very mildly at Northwestern, just through some of their summer teaching, over a decade ago. But what was that like going back to Illinois after, going to school there and teaching those students? What was that experience like working with them?
I won't say this is too much different as a teaching assistant, because while I was a teaching assistant there, I started to taught some minor students, right, and playing in a music ensemble. So it's just like more students and more advanced students, and because they all know me very well and they know Henry is an advanced player, so when they learn from me, I'm not sure if they like my style of teaching, but it seems like they make a lot of progress during the 6 months of studying. And I personally, I'm the teacher who always push students a lot. So I remember a lot of teachers in US, they always, give you compliments and say, oh, it sounds really good, and maybe we can work on this. But my teaching is totally different. I usually don't say good thing. I usually say, I really think you have a lot of things to work on now, and this is not good, that is not good, and so we work on this. So that's kind of different. I'm not sure if this is good for students there or not, but I feel like they make progress each week.
And is that, do you think like your style of teaching, do you think that's a result of your training in Taiwan or going to school there? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
interesting.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. My teacher, the teacher when I turned 15, I have another teacher, and she is the person who never say you are good. Never. She always, just give you a lot of informations and do this and do that and a lot of practice. And she never say you are a good player. I think until that I graduate, she said, you actually play quite nice. So I hope you have a good, successful career.
That compliment was probably just golden to actually, because you know it's well earned if it's that rare and it comes out.
That's true. Yeah.
What was the like, if we get down into like technical things like method books or etudes or that sort of thing, what were some of the things that you worked on when you were a student in Taiwan? And then maybe we can talk about how that's different from what you're doing with your own students these days.
As a beginner, I start with Smendel. Mm-hmm. That's always, and my first teacher, he has his own etude book. His name is Yonghe Fu, and so he has his own etude book. So he just gave me his book, and basically there are bowings, crossings, and different scales. And that's the first start. And then when I turned 15, seriously learning about music, I already have many years of playing those basic, etude. And I think for me, the most etude book that I like is Nani's 10 etudes. That's the one I really like. And Petraki's method book is another one that I really like, because those fifth practice and thumb positions, I really think those are a very good book, and that helped me to grow up. And Michael Cameron also has one of his book that I knew when I was in Illinois. So now I changed my entire training into these three books. So first is Michael Cameron's book, and then once they get into a certain level, I will have them to practice Kreutzer etude from violin, and those are very, very good for practicing those basic bow technique. And then after few other like Smendel etude books, I will have them to practice on Nani etude. Yeah, that's what I learned. And I'm not sure if you know another French teacher named Holez. Holez has 3 etude book, and that's the one that I used before I met Michael Cameron. Yeah. Yeah,
I'm familiar with it. I think that my teacher, Michael Hovnanian, used those. Uh-huh. I have like a memory of that from back in the early 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, if you Google, you can see Holier's etude book. There are three books. Okay. And I only use the number 3 now, because number 1 is mostly for the beginner. Number 2 is scale and arpeggio with 2 octave. Number 3 is 3 octave. Mm-hmm. And there are so many variations for each key. And I think that's also a very good book. You should check it out.
What does your studio look like in China right now at the university? How many students do you have, and undergraduate, graduate students?
So, I mean, when I got there, there's 0 students. I have to teach. I have to teach oral skill and theory, those kind of things to fulfill the teaching load. Uh-huh. But the second year, I already got 4 students. Okay. Because I try really hard to recruit, and I recruit some students from Taiwan because. In Taiwan right now, we have so many musicians and we have no job for them. So I always tell them, it's time to look out. Now the first step is in China, because we speak the same language, and it's easier to get used to those kind of life over there. And also it's very close to Taiwan. You fly for 2 hours, you get into China. So one of my students, I trained her for 3 months, and she already got a job in China. So she graduated from Taiwan, one of the university, and I told her, your level probably is not good enough to get any job in Taiwan. So what about, try something in China? And surprisingly, just after 3 months of training, she already got her first job in China, a professional orchestra job. Mm-hmm. So I really think right now is don't really think about you want to only audition in your own country. You have to really look outside and see other possibilities. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you will lose the opportunity to get a job, because when we are younger, like when you graduate from age of 22 to 30, I think that's the golden time of our body. We can really play like 100% precisely in this. And then once you get older and older, you kind of lose it. I already feel that. I'm 35 now, and I really feel like I cannot play as precise as when I was a little bit younger.
Yeah.
So I always tell my students, you really have to work really hard now to get a job. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I think I was a successful teacher. And another student of mine got the librarian job in the orchestra. I think that's also very good too. Another philosophy of mine is, if my student is not good enough, I won't tell them you're good. I will just tell them you really, really need a lot of work. And if the student doesn't make progress, I would just say, go look for something else. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a musician, playing in the orchestra is one thing, but you can do other things to help. If you can be a librarian, or any kind of administration job in orchestra will be good too. Otherwise, if you keep playing, I don't think you will get a good career. I'm very honest teacher.
And the world needs people in all these other administrative roles and all these other things. We need people that are passionate and that are good at those jobs. So there's a lot you can do in the world of music. Performing is a component, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
So growing up in Taiwan and studying in Taiwan, and then going to the United States and having some, at least in Chicago, some pretty traditional American orchestral training,
right.
and now back and teaching in China. Yeah, and I haven't spent any time in either Taiwan or China, but like, I think of American orchestral sort of driven training. Everybody's playing orchestra strings. They're using, and then I think of a lot of areas in Europe, and I think more solo strings, more of an emphasis on solo literature, maybe a little more body motion. I'm just thinking of all these differences between like sort of stereotypical European and American training. What have your experiences in Asia been like, in Taiwan and China? Is it more in that, are people kind of trained more in that American mold or that European mold, or is it kind of scattered?
I think it really depends on the teacher.
Okay.
In China, I would say most of old generation teachers, they kind of in the Russian style, mm-hmm. more than European or American.
Sure.
It's more Russian, yeah. And 80% of those teachers play in German bow in China. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but luckily when I was younger, my teacher, she graduated from in Paris Conservatory. So my training is mostly French.
Right.
And that's why I play a lot of solo pieces. And I have French bow. So let's talk about it. When I was in America, I kind of changed my style totally when I was in Chicago. Yeah. I used to move a lot. My body used to move a lot when I play solo. But when I play orchestra, I realized moving too much sometimes will make the intonation bad. Sometimes. So I prefer just, move a little. It depends on the musical idea you want to make, but don't make too much motion with your body. But playing an audition and playing orchestra is different for me. I think playing an audition, it has to be more precise and don't move too much, because that will ruin your position. Sometimes intonation will become bad. But playing an orchestra, I will move my body a little bit, mm-hmm. because that's music, right? Yeah. So I got into that kind of mode, playing an audition, and I will just set my body. I still stand. I don't use stool. I still stand, but I stand in a way that I don't move too much. And I also teach my students that way. Playing this. I always tell my students, playing the orchestra and play solo pieces are different. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion. Some people might not agree with me. Because in the orchestra, we have to use, first of all, is different strings. That's the first thing. And second thing is I always tell my students, better to have two bass one orchestra bass with a little bit higher bridge, because you don't play high position at all. You just play low position, and you need a lot of tension from your bow. So I always make this bridge higher. And then the other bass is solo bass. You have a longer fingerboard, you have a solo tuning bass, and then you have a much lower, so you can press the high position. Well, luckily, my students, they all have two basses now, because the school bass and their own bass. So I think that's quite success, and they understand what I want to tell them. For me, it's difficult to have one bass that you can play solo and orchestra at the same time. You have to adjust the bridge and change the string. And I'm sick of it. Change string really take a lot of time.
Yeah, that gets a little old with the wrists, and as we get older and older too, it's like my enthusiasm
so now it's just machine. This machine.
Yeah. Sadly, I lost my adapter, but that's what I did for years and years. I got my power drill, but it's funny, it really is almost like two different. I describe to my students sometimes it's almost like two different instruments, even if it's the same bass.
Yeah.
You have to just even the approach up there. Beyond the octave harmonic, the way that even the angle of the bow, the proximity of the bridge, tension on the bow hair, even maybe, amount of rosin you're using, left-hand approach even. I mean, it really is radically different, like playing Beethoven 5 down in first position versus, La Sonambula or whatever solo piece up in thumb position.
Yeah, and those kind of bow stroke you barely use in solo piece, like Beethoven 5. Those kind of bow stroke, I mean, I don't think any solo pieces I have ever used that kind of bow stroke. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So
was that a challenge for you coming into this very American, like rosin your bow till it sticks on the wall, high string kind of play? Like, was it a challenge for you to develop some of those orchestral bow strokes? Because I think that's a big difference, right? People that have a real solo background, and then all of a sudden those like heavy spiccato A&E string strokes. Was that a challenge for you, or did you pick it up pretty quickly?
At the beginning is a challenge for a few days, but I don't know why. If I listen to it, I know the sound. I can get it quickly in maybe a few days. So Rob, he's very good. He always demonstrate to me what kind of sound he like. Although he's using German bow, so my bow stroke that right now that I have is mostly from his theory. So it's very German bow style staccato. Yeah, and I mean, it works very well. So that's something I really appreciate about studying with him, and he really teach me how to do those orchestra stroke. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and most people in Taiwan and China, they have no clue about this kind of bow stroke.
It's just something that's not taught.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
At what point are you teaching some of those strokes to your students if they're going out and looking for jobs? Like, does that enter the teaching? And at what point, I mean, do you introduce that early on? Is that more of like you're getting ready to go audition, so it's time to talk about this? How does that work for you just in terms of developing bow strokes with students?
So far, I have basically 5 students now. And there's only one student I think I successfully get her bow stroke nice. And other 4, they're still on the process of learning those kind of, cleanness. Mm-hmm. And on the string stroke is easier to teach, of course. And then whenever I want to start to do a little bit off string, it just become messy. Mm-hmm. It's like, whoa. And I just don't know what happened with my student. Maybe it's the teaching of my style is not clear enough. But one student did get it because she practiced 2 hours every day, only bow stroke. Start with da 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 da, and with off string, and gradually a bit faster and faster, and then she will pick up some excerpt every day. Well, I mean, she's the one who win the job, I would say. So I think what I should learn from my student is what is the process for them to learn those bow strokes, because for me it's very easy, but not for everyone. So I actually sometimes have to ask my student, how do you get this?
Yeah.
Is it because of my teaching or is it because of your own experience? And from this student, I think it is because hard working, because she practiced really, really a lot. And my other student told me, we're sick of listening to her because she can just spend 2 hours practicing bow stroke, and they're kind of like sick of it. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the only way you can learn something. You have to experience it. You have to practice a lot, and once you get it, then you have it.
Yeah.
You don't have to practice anymore. It's something is about your muscle. If you get it, then everything is fine. Right.
It's problem solving. And then you've solved the problem, and it's that's the sort of the mystery surrounding practicing and something like that. And like the worst thing someone could do is just go bang their head against the wall for 2 hours and not be engaged, because you might just be learning incredibly weird things that don't actually help your playing.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by the Upton Bass String Instrument Company, a company that I have been such a fan of over the years. Gary and Eric and all the good folks at Upton, they do extraordinary work. They've been at it for a long time, and it has been so much fun to watch them evolve over the years. And a question they get asked a lot is, what's the difference between their Bohemian model bass and their standard model basses? And basically what it boils down to is they come from the same basic outline, but there's much more customization available in a Bohemian bass. So Upton standard basses basically look like each other. They're either laminate, hybrid, or carved, but they're similar in their form, while you can get your Bohemian bass customized if you want hat peg tuners, if you want all sorts of other details. That's the bass you can customize. And if you haven't been to the Upton website recently, they're constantly adding new videos, new photos, new descriptions, and every bass has a story. And I love following along with these stories. Visit them at uptonbass.com, and thanks for sponsoring the podcast. In terms of like these days, for you personally, what sort of do you have any sort of daily routines you do on the bass? Like, do you pick up the bass? Do the first 30 minutes of your practicing look the same, or hour? Do you have anything that you consistently do to just keep the blade sharp? What do you do?
First, it's always long bow. It's always a long bow, and make sure my bow is very smooth. And when I change bow, I don't want to hear too much gap. I want to feel like I'm a vocalist. I can always sing even with the long bow, and make crescendo and diminuendo with different bowing, and then it's bow crossing, and then next thing is a lot of scales and arpeggio. I usually will do maybe 10 scales, just to make sure everything is in tune. And I don't practice fast. I practice slow. So I would do two notes in one bow, 4 notes in one bow, and then 8 notes in one bow. And then next, I will pick up one Bach solo suite, and I will just play from the beginning to the end. I feel like as a solo player, I always want to have a suite that I can play immediately. If anyone say, "Oh, Henry, can you play something for us?" And I think Bach number 1 and number 3, that's something I want to keep it in my mind so that I can always play in front of everyone. So that's kind of my attitude. and then I will just pick up one of the 90-10 etude, and then just play. That's just my routine. Yeah. And then next will become in what is in my mind, what I'm going to do in my next project. Yeah.
I think that's like when players get to a high level that play the kind of music that you often do. That's a routine I've heard before. That James Oasey, who he lives in Amsterdam. He's a solo player based in Amsterdam. Very similar routine to yours: scales and then Bach, and just loves and like every day. I don't remember off the top of my head what suite he's doing regularly, but I know he rotates too, and then and then some sort of etude work like that.
But for me, Bach 6 suites, I don't really think we should play all of them. we should just play those that fits our instrument better. And for me, number 1 and number 3 really is better for our instrument. And number 4 to number 6, it depends on the key. Some keys you can probably play nice, but not the entire piece. Like number 2, I think Prelude is really good for us, the D minor, but except the Prelude, some others I don't feel like we can play nicely in our instrument. So I don't suggest my student to play all 6, although I played all of them in different edition, different key. And I always have at least 3 editions if I want to learn a Bach. And I want to play all of them because every person has their own thinking about chord and a sonority of producing the sound. So, and fingerings, of course, and bowing. So, like right now, if I play number 1, I have Michael, I have Jeff Baratage, I have international versions. I have so many. I love comparing, and I love to using all these fingerings and try the best. And I'll kind of pick up this fingering from this person, pick up the fingering from this person, and then create some of my own fingerings and become my own style. I think that's just what we do if you really like Bach, right?
Well, absolutely. I love that, and I would get an edition that had no markings whatsoever, right? And then I would copy some of my marks in, and when you're working on a piece, be it Bach or Bottesini or anything, with a student, do you have a set of fingerings you typically pass along, or do you kind of figure it out with them as you go? Fingerings and bow, I've thought about that a lot with students. Fingerings and bowings. Do I just kind of give them what I typically do, or do I see what they come up with and then kind of work from there? Or how have you approached that in your teaching?
I think this question is a good question for me. When I was young, my teacher always give her fingerings and bowing to me directly. But now I feel like students should learn the process of creating their own fingerings. So I will actually just give them the music and have them to listen to the music and then to create their own fingerings and phrasing. And then during our lesson, if their finger doesn't work, I will show them my fingering and they will try it and they will decide which one they like. The bowing is another thing because bowing is about music idea and phrasing. If their phrasing is really bad, sometimes they have bad taste. So I will just show them what they're doing and what I like. Usually they will just, take what I like. It's not because of my playing, it's just because sometimes they have a bad, decision of the fingerings and bowing. But, after a lot of years teaching, I find out if they practice the same etude book and scale book as you learn when you are little, they actually will pick similar fingerings with you. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, they've learned the same. It's like learning a vocabulary. They have a vocabulary of approaching the bass, and if you have that shared vocabulary, you're probably going to make similar decisions.
Yeah. And also they have different fingers. So if they have a longer finger, of course they can have different kind of fingerings. If you have a much taller people as your student, you should not ask them to use the same fingering as you're using, right?
Yeah.
That's just another thing that my teaching.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had the same exact experience, and just letting people have that process of figuring out fingerings for themselves. I used to just, give them a copy of whatever I was, typically, and I would have them try to like learn, like how many times I passed along the same set of Bottesini Concerto No. 2 fingerings to students. I must have done that dozens of times over the years. And then I quit doing that about 8 or 9 years ago and just said, all right, figure out these next 4 lines, for the next lesson and see what they come up with. And you learn a lot, and also how they approach the bass, because, I have all sorts of extended thumb position things that if you're not into that or you don't have that developed yet, it's just not going to work.
But for orchestra excerpt, I have different thought though. I rather give them a bowing that I already have for orchestra excerpt. The fingerings, I will, because I already told you there are so many teachers give me different fingerings in different pieces. So I will actually tell my students all the fingerings that I got. And then just give them all the finger and they have them to try it while they practice. And they pick up the one that really like. For instance, the Unheld Leben, from 9 to 13, we have so many fingerings for that passage, right? Yeah. So you just give them to students. They have to try it and see which one really fits their fingers. But the bowing, I think it's better we just give it to them. Yeah. That's for orchestra excerpt. Yeah.
So how old were you again when you came to Chicago? You were 22?
24.
24. Okay. So a little over a decade ago. If you could go back in time right now and talk to 24-year-old Henry and give him some advice. Now you've been in Chicago, you got your DMA, you taught at Ball State and taught at U of I for a bit, and now you're in China teaching. What advice would you give 24-year-old Henry, knowing what you know now?
Work on orchestra excerpt harder.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Really? Took a little while for that lesson to sink in.
Because the first of my language my English speaking is not very good when I was in DePaul in the first semester. I barely can communicate with people. Yeah. So the first couple lessons, I feel like I have no idea what Rob tried to tell me. It's from the second semester, I feel like I understand more and more. So maybe the first thing is learn English better, and then orchestra excerpt better. Yeah, you probably don't understand that kind of feeling when people say, "Hey, what's up, bro?" And I have no idea what that means.
Yeah,
I just like standing there and then not, and just say hello. That kind of experience is, it's not very good in my life. It's like you're in a place and you're a deaf person. You cannot communicate. In the lesson, you have to have someone to demonstrate to play in front of you so that you understand. That is not very good experience for me.
Yeah. It's an experience I've never had like that, being a student in a foreign country. The closest I've had is going to these different festivals in different countries and everybody's speaking another language. And I sort of realize how it feels, like not being able to, but to have that be your daily, that's sink or swim, having that be your daily experience.
Right. So yeah, that's a good, for now, I feel like it's a good experience. But at that time, it was difficult time. It was very difficult. Yeah. It was difficult.
Well, Henry, congratulations on everything you're up to, and
I will try to go to ISP convention every 2 years. I will try my best to go there.
Nice.
So I'm sure I will see you again, and hopefully I will see more and more American applied jobs in China because there's just so many openings every year.
Wow.
So many openings. Every year I just see like 8-10 openings pop out. And sometimes it's brand new orchestra, they start from beginning, so they need 8 bass players, sometimes like that. And I really think, we should look for this kind of job. And sometimes they don't need you to come here to audition. You just send your tape. If they really like it, they will just have you to come here for a trial. Why are there so many new orchestras popping up in so many openings? Is it just that people are listening to more and more classical music, or is it the population? Okay. Yeah, and also because the governments are richer and richer, so they have a lot of money, and they hope they can help the city become more civilized. Just more cultural things. They help their citizens to understand both. Chinese music or Western music. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's good. It's a good thing. So for these 3 years in China, there are already 3 brand new orchestra started, and I think we should look for this kind of job. And get a principal job in China is great. It's actually great, and the salary you can kind of negotiate. As a foreigner, you can negotiate. But the only thing I think I want to remind everybody is you have to have a master's degree to come to China, because it's something that the government set up a law that if you hire an expert from the other country, at least they have to have a master's degree.
So people listening, go get a master's, and then look. Yeah. Do you look on musical chairs, or where do people find?
Yes.
Okay.
Musical chair is the most convenient place, but not all the opening is announced over there. Some of them are not announced there, but those days I think most of orchestra, they know musical chair is the website everybody look at. So if I see any directors, I will tell them, if you have job opening, please post over there. Okay. So right now, I think everybody already can see so many Chinese orchestras is listed in a musical chairs, right? Like right now, there's a Guangzhou Symphony Orchestra, Shanghai Symphony Orchestra, and Guiyang. There's just so many. And just send your tape. I still remember 4 years ago, I sent my tape to Hong Kong Sinfonietta and Hangzhou Philharmonic. I just sent my tape, and they decide they want to hire me. It's just. I won't say it's easy, but I will say it's an opportunity.
Yeah. And all those people, like the next time a Chicago Symphony audition comes up and there are 300 people auditioning or whatever the number is, I mean, it's easy to get despondent and dark about the lack of opportunities, but listen to what Henry's talking about. There are these, and what a cool adventure to go play orchestra music in China and explore a different culture and, different musical background and traditions. Yeah.
Yeah, you can always audition back to US, but you find a job first and you look for another job. And if you think you're a good player, if you don't have a solid job in US, why not just consider going to other country? And China is a country they welcome other people to come here. So please come and contact me if you are interested in any question about the living here, living expenses here, and the style. Just feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to help.
That's great. Thank you, Henry. And you will definitely be hearing from Henry again on the podcast coming up soon. Such a pleasure to connect, and I just love being able to chat across the world. I mean, we were doing this conversation. I was at home in San Francisco. Henry was in Taiwan visiting family, and just how cool. It's like we're in the same room, and we knew each other from Chicago. This bass world, it just brings people together like nothing I've ever experienced. It makes us feel like neighbors. It makes us, it's just so cool. So thank you, Henry, and thank you to you for listening. I have such a good time each and every week doing these episodes, having these conversations with interesting people like Henry, and I just like to thank you for following along. If you've never sent a message on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, or email, take a moment this week and just reach out and say hi. Let me know where you're from, a little bit about yourself. If there's somebody you'd like to hear on the show, or if there's a topic you'd like to hear about, that would be great. ContrabassConversations.com is our website, and that has links to everything, or you can just email me at feedback@ContrabassConversations.com. And this podcast is put together by a great team of folks. We have Steve Hinchy and Michael Cooper, Mitch Mooring, and Trevor Jones behind the scenes making this thing happen. And Mitch Mooring is making beautiful basses in the Dallas area. So if you're looking for a bass or know someone who is, MitchMooring.com has more information on that. I'm your host, Jason Heath, coming to you this week from Portland, Oregon, but normally from San Francisco, California, here on the U.S. West Coast. Love it out here, and I'm so glad to have you on this journey with me. That's it for this week, and we will see you again soon for more life in the low end of the spectrum.